Welcome back to the channel. We are working on the 56 again. This will be part 3 of the 56. And what we're doing is more front suspension stuff. We're putting it all together, some more fab work here and there. Going to put the engine back in. We're going to paint the engine, clean up some stuff like that. But we've got a lot to get done, so let's get at it. Next, I was going to work on this e-brake handle here and build some linkage and get the cable and all that kind of figured out and what's going on there. But I'm worried I'm going to run into the steering column here. So with the column not here yet, I am not going to do that yet. But I'm thinking I'm going to get rid of this guy here. This is just an original cross member that's no longer needed. It wasn't even used before. Would have been used originally, but hasn't been used in a long time. And with the new Ultra Beef unit here, yeah, it's not needed. And somebody had already cut it. I've taken out one of the bolts you can see here. So I'm thinking we're just going to get rid of that thing completely. It serves no purpose other than it's really the lowest point on the vehicle and I could see it catching on something. So why not just get rid of it? And just like that, they're out. So much better. And no longer a low point to catch on things. So with that done, we are going to swing the engine back in here, bolt up the transmission, and work on getting it leveled and then figure out motor mounts. So I swung the engine back in, bolted up the transmission as the transmission mount hasn't changed, and we are currently trying to get it all leveled and dialed in. It's pretty close, sitting right there. I'm going to throw the manifolds on next, make sure that it looks like they're in the right location as far as hooking up with the exhaust. And then we'll make sure we are dead center, side to side, same angle front to back, 3-degree angle to the back. And then we'll work more on these engine mounts. Well, it's been a long day. The manifolds had horrible broken off, rusted studs. I do believe these are the original manifolds off of the Titanic. These things were rusty. So it took a lot to get these things out. Eventually just had to drill and tap them as they were continually breaking off, even with a ton of heat and everything, and no dice. The next issue was doing the motor mounts, which rightfully I expected this to go a lot quicker and smoother than it did. The problem with it was making sure that, of course, it's level side to side, and of course that we have our proper 3-degree angle on the engine, but also to make sure that the exhaust lined up. So I'd get it where I had it all leveled every direction and thought, okay, we're good. And then I would go to check the exhaust and the exhaust isn't gonna fit because it was either too far forward or too far back. And that went on for quite a while, trying to move it forward, back to get it into the right position, till finally I got it there. But with the help of my handy dandy ratchet straps. I don't know if you guys use ratchet straps like I do, but boy, I use them all the time. I will hook it, like in this case, I hooked it to the motor mount. Of course, they weren't bolted up or even there at the time. Hook it up, put it up, ratchet strap it, pull the engine forward a bit. If I need to pull it side to side it, just to make sure everything, again, you have to make sure it's centered between the frame, level, 3 degrees, and exhaust. So there was a million things that had to be taken into account, but I'm glad to say it's there and the motor mounts are on and looking great. So I think with that, I'm going to leave it for the day. And if any of you have noticed this horrible sweater I'm wearing that is falling apart, as they say, my sweater looks like this, so my car can look like this. We'll see you tomorrow. So next we are going to work on the engine, clean it up a bit. Gonna degrease it all. Gonna scrape off any of this this paint that's flaking all over it here. It's kind of gross looking here. We're gonna make this thing look nice, paint it up, and make it look like it belongs in this red unit. We're gonna make it bright red. So let's clean it up, do some masking and some taping, and go from there. All right, so as you can see, we got a lot of the flaking paint off of it anywhere. It's been fully degreased, scrubbed, wire brushed, everything. Top to bottom, laid underneath it, did everywhere. So this thing is ready to get some paint on. And what we're using is some Tremclad Fire Red. For my money, you cannot beat a brush-on Tremclad for an engine paint. It lasts forever. It is amazing. That's what I recommend always. All right, bring you up to speed on where I'm at here. Built a block-off plate right there for where the clutch originally came through. Welded it on so that it, obviously, nothing will go through the firewall. And painted up the frame a little bit. Built some gussets front and back for the engine mounts, both sides, of course. Threw the rack back on as I'm currently trying to figure out here a sway bar, as this kit that is hub to hub is missing a sway bar. How do you not have a sway bar in there? I don't know. You gotta have a sway bar, especially on something like this. But I got this guy here, went out to the wrecker and got this. This thing is thick. It's nice Mustang S197 Mustang one, and it's gonna work good. I'm going to space it down a little on the front here so that it's got room for the bar to move. And then as far as end links are concerned, I will most likely knock this off, thread it, and put an end on it, like a Heim end, and then it can thread in to the lower A-arm here. Of course, it'll be a little higher than this. It's sitting on the rack currently, but this end will be down a bit. This end will be up a bit, so it'll sit on a little bit of an angle, and it should work just perfect. On the inside of the frame here, we have these wings that were here. This is from where they kind of winged out for the original cross member. They went down. I twisted them, tweaked them up so that they come off flat here on both sides. And as you can see over here, the sway bar mount is pretty decent on these. So I'm going to add a little metal to it, build that out, and then I will figure out a spacer block that I can put on the bottom of this after I've got the piece built out a little bit so that I have a mount for the sway bar. But yeah, it's gonna work pretty good, I believe. So, did a little painting over here as well, cleaned up, painted the starter, engine mounts, painted those. I want to do a little bit of grinding on where the gussets are, just clean them up a little bit. So I haven't painted any of that stuff yet. So that's where I'm at. Next here, I'm most likely going to be working on the insides of the frame here to fab some pieces, and we will be back with you afterwards. And I almost forgot to mention, look at that engine. Look at that thing. That looks so much better. Beautiful bright red. Matches the exterior here beautifully. Gonna polish up the valve covers after a while and then put all the accessory drive back on the front. I got a brand new chrome power steering pump to put on there, so that will look really nice on there. Still waiting on some tune-up stuff as far as cap rotor. I've got new plugs to go in and new set of wires, but still waiting on a few of those pieces to show up. But yeah, while we're waiting, it's frame time. Back to some fab work. So we got those tacked on. Those are our sway bar mounts, of course. And now it's time to work on the end links. So what I did was I took one of them off here and I have cut the one end off as it's got to be cut way down. And I'm going to try to use one of these guys that threads into the lower control arm. And if I can make the thread in this the same as that, then I'll thread it onto here, is the plan. Of course, this rod is way too thick, so it's got to be ground down before I can thread it. So I'm going to machine it, and I'll show you how I'm going to set that up. Got it all set up in the lathe, and you know, this is what we're going to do. We're going to turn this on. We're going to run the grinder on here and keep measuring it until we got the outside diameter we need. Is it going to work? It should, if we can keep it consistent. If it doesn't, well, we'll come up with plan B. But this is plan A. That worked quite well. Just kept on hitting it with the caliper, making sure that we were keeping it consistent. And as you can see, it gets fat on the end here where I had it in, but we don't need that part. We're gonna cut that off and then thread it. All right, we have tapped it. We got a jam nut on there. It is ready to go. That came out beautiful. And our fitting here threads on nicely. So, time to give it a test and install it and make sure it looks like it's gonna work. All right, so there it is on. And it's a little bit closer than I would prefer in this area right here. When the steering arm goes back when it's full crank that way. So this fitting that I have has this little stud that comes out of it here. I think I'm going to lose that stud and just go to a fitting that doesn't have one so that it can move in that much more and then just run a regular bolt through it. And then that'll get the clearance that I'm after here. Otherwise, looks great. Gonna work great. So now I gotta repeat this process for the other side. The other end link has been fabricated over on, sitting right there on that side, ready to go. And I have the sway bar bolted in. I built some brackets for it here. You can see we used some 1.5" square tubing, as wanted to space it down a bit so that when it articulates and goes up with the suspension, it has lots of room to sway and move around and not come in contact with the frame. So we have tons of room there. And as long as everything clears, as I've run it through steering it back and forth, and that's good. We don't have the spring in, of course, so that will be the next thing to note whether or not it's gonna make certain that it clears that, but it is in. So next, I think we're gonna change the spark plugs, and then we might blast the front end apart here so that we can paint all of the inside and give it a second coat on the outside. So that's what's up now. I also didn't show you the gussets, as I built gussets for the top and the bottom, as I want to make sure that ain't going anywhere. So it isn't. Nice and strong. Front frame and sway bar are all painted. Valve covers are polished. Got, you know, I don't think they've ever been cleaned. They had a lot of little rusties on them, so knocked all those out with my good friend Autosol. And painted the firewall, as it was all flaking and red coming through, so that looks much better. Next up, we are going to start hooking some things back up as far as wiring is concerned. Put the alternator on, front drive, all that kind of stuff. Still waiting on a few tune-up parts here, but we can get going, hook the wiring up to the starter, etc., etc. So that's where I'm at now. It's time to control the cruise. With what, you say? Cruise control. Dakota Digital Cruise Control at that. I have used lots of these. They work great. I have determined, because I don't like to see the unit if I don't have to, putting it under the battery tray looks like it would be good. So this is job one. We're going to mount that main control box there. So to do so, we got to drill in a mount. It's going to require a little bit of a bend. We're going to pop a hole in the side of the box support here just to run the cable through. So that's what we're doing right now. All right, popped a hole in the battery tray just underneath there for all of this stuff to come through. Made it a little bit, I ovaled it out a bit so that I could fit the wiring through there if I decide to run it through there. And now I was just working on the bracket here, making sure I had the angle right so I can bolt it. As you can see, that will work beautifully. So I'm going to drill some holes and mount the main assembly. Main assembly is mounted, as you can see there, and you stand back. It's nice and tucked up out of the way. I like that. Next up here, we are going to route the cable up to, and I've already popped a hole in this bracketry right here that goes on the back of the carb, holds the throttle, the factory throttle cable, and the return spring. So I'm going to mount the cruise cable to the top of that. As you can see, got that bolted up here, got that bracket nice and tight on there, and have ran the chain up onto the throttle linkage here as it specifies. The dumb thing is that it does not, the kit says it comes with these chain connectors and it doesn't. So that's annoying. Dakota Digital, do better. You should have these connectors in there like it says that you do. Anyways, I ran to the local hardware store and got the chain connector, as it's just like a toilet chain kind of idea. Connector, number 10 ball chain. So that's hooked up. So the cruise is all hooked to the carburetor, and yeah, we can maybe adjust that cable a bit and see about hooking some connectors on the cable. With that taken care of, it was time to move on to the wiring. So all of the harness that comes out of there, I've got it going through that extra hole that I'd put in there with loom. I've got it going up into a factory clip and then up and through a grommet and inside. Nice and clean, keeps it out of the way, keeps it out of sight. That is going to work great. So that's it for the engine bay portion. I also ran the ground for it into the ground strap, or into the mounting strap rather. So next we got to move inside and do a little bit of wiring. Wiring is knocked out, ran it in over there and then across up under the dash. I just have it looped here as I'm going to leave that until the column's in and then tie it up when it ties in with the column and the signal arm where you set it all. But it was pretty straightforward. There's a black ground from the VSS, which just it's the sender that just threads into where your speedometer cable goes. You get a gray and a black out of there. You run them up and in here. So you got your gray VSS, which hooks into your harness, black ground. You need a constant, or a ignition hot, pardon me, which is your gray brown wire. Brown, that's right, brown. And we've got a purple wire, which goes to the cold side of the brake switch. Dark blue wire, which goes to the tach. And what else? A red wire that goes to the hot side of the brake switch. That's about it. So those are all run, wired, and everything. Like I say, we'll take care of this when the column goes in. But that's it for under the dash for now. Back under the hood. And the accessory drive is on. Threw the battery charger on it just to give her some juice. But yeah, I got the alternator, belt, fan, all that good stuff on, fan belt. So what I'm gonna do next here is, I think we will check out that power steering pump and put it on. So it was time to get pumped. And power steering pump's what I mean. I'll tell you what, it'd be nice if they included any kind of instructions with these brackets for this chrome pump. Nice looking pump, you know, but it sure would be good. It was a pile of plates and bolts and whatnot to try to figure out. So I've got it set up this way right now. Looks to be correct as I can adjust it and, you know, it moves the pulley. So we got to get a belt, but that will come in time. Right now, working on the pressure reducing valve here. So where this goes in, where the power steering hose, I guess it's the pressure hose, the line that comes out, we got to pull this because I guess it makes too much pressure. And so we got to put this pressure reducer in here. So that's what I'm working on right now. We got to pull this out. I've heard of people doing this. I never did this on my Monarch, put this reducer in, and 100,000 miles plus, it's going strong. So, you know, is it required? I don't know, but we're gonna put it in here. So see what else parts are in here and take it from there, but I got to put the camera down to pull some more parts. What you have to do is it comes with this aluminum clamping device here. So you put that in the vise with that valve that I just removed from the pump there. And you take out this center nut here and you'll see it has this one little shim on it. It says, get rid of that shim and shim as required. And due to this being a Mustang rack, it says right here that it needs 3 shims for 1,000 PSI. And so the kit comes with new shims. So we're gonna put 3 of those on here. 1, 2, 3. Like so. And then we will bolt tighten that back up and put the pump back together. Fuel lines are hooked up and put a clamp in for the metal part on the fuel hose and just pulled out the plugs. Look at these plugs. How old do you think these are? Old green AC Delcos. Whew, good thing we're putting some new plug wires are in. NGKV powers, these are what I always use. I've found them to be very good. Next up, I think we'll toss the manifolds on. Exhaust manifolds are on, all tightened up. So next we're going to put the new cap, rotor, plug wires on. And new studs, of course, too, as the old ones snapped off. Removing them. Common issue though, right? However, the new studs came with these brass nuts. Why? Why? What is the point of brass nuts? I like to crank on manifold bolts especially nice and tight. Don't want any leaks. These things, garbage. As soon as you put any kind of torque to them, they're gone, they're dead, they're stripped. Junk. So I put steel ones on, lock washers, all that. But why would it come with these? New cap and rotor is on. Time for plug wires. Plug wires are on. I'm usually a person to route them down and around the back, but these valve covers had these kind of holder assemblies kind of on them, so I figured we'll reuse those. So routed all the wires though nice and clean through those over the valve covers and up, and put the air cleaner on. And I do believe that's gonna, aside from the belt for the power steering pump, I do believe that's about it for the engine, unless I think of something I've forgotten, but for now, that's it. So back to the suspension. We are going to start putting some stuff together. All right, one side is together. This is full lock here, and checking for clearance on my end link here. We're still good. We've got at least probably 1/4 inch there, which is all right. And then we spin it full lock the other direction, and we've still got clearance in there too. So that was one thing I wanted to make sure that it was going to have clearance there, so that's good. And yeah, if anybody's ever doing one of these, I find that they don't tell you anywhere in what direction these spacers are supposed to go. It comes with the ball joints, lower control arms and upper control arms come with these spacers, but it doesn't tell you where they go, as far as do they go under, do they go over. So if anybody's ever doing this, this is a note, they go on this side of the spindle. So they space it up so that your nut then is in the right location for you to put the cotter in. So that's one side done, and we'll be second verse, same as the first. Go and do it on the other side. Second side is all together. Note that if you are doing this, the upper and lower control arms come with boots. However, you're not supposed to use those boots, as there's another box with different boots. So keep that in mind. Don't use the boots that come on them, swap to the other ones. But with that done, let's get on to the brakes here. We are going to pack the bearings, slam them in, and knock the seal in, and then we can throw the rotor on the spindle. That's what we're doing now. Got the rotor on this side. Of note, if anyone's doing this, the bearing races that come with, inner and outer, are not to be used. The ones that come in the Timken boxes are to be used. So you got to knock out the inners and outers and change them for the ones that are in the boxes. So that just adds more time, so that's fun. Now we're going to hit these with good old brake clean. Did you know that it can actually be used to clean brakes too? I know, right? Crazy. Let's get you up to speed with where we're at here. The calipers and pads are on, as you can see, which involved putting on this bracket here for the calipers, and this bracket did not fit. You could get it bolted in on this one, then the bottom one wouldn't go in, or you could put the bottom one in and try the top. Of course, they were not done properly. So I had to rework these so that they fit the spindles, and now they do. They fit great, and got the calipers on, bolted the lines on here, nice stainless braided lines, and I just ran through an existing hole on the frame here. I'm going to do this on the other side. Of course, we don't have this hole. I just opened up this one. This is an old steering box hole. Works great to go through, and we'll run the brake line, of course, on the other side of that. So I'll measure off of this hole, which is a common hole, and we will measure back and down how far it is so that I can go over to the other side and mark it out and punch a hole in there and get the brake line through. But that's where we're at right now. Waiting on the steering column and master cylinder to show. They are supposed to be here today. So I'm looking forward to getting the steering column going in that regard. I have also been working on the steering column drop. I guess not the column drop, but the piece that holds the column where it goes through the firewall. So what I'm going to use here is I've got this plate, modified the original plate, and I'm going to use a piece of exhaust tubing. I will cut this piece and open it out and weld it to this, weld up that hole, and then I will put the clamp on it so that it can clamp the column when it goes through. Waiting till the column gets here. It's supposed to be 2-inch. This is a 2-inch pipe, so if I split it and open it a bit, should work perfect for that. But we're gonna wait till it gets here so that I can ensure that it's gonna fit properly. Most likely I'll cut this down, maybe just use like the bottom half so that the top half can be used as the clamp and cinch them together. So that's where we're at for now. We're gonna get back onto this side and get that brake hose run. Steering column arrived, and I had to put in the cruise handle here, cruise control handle, right there. And I'll tell you, that was a nightmare and a half. Pull the column apart, of course, take all the guts out of the top end here to try to gain access. Well, you can get in here, but you cannot get in where the wires go down the column and then pop out down here. So that was an absolute nightmare to try to fish this wire for the cruise through this column and out here. Boy, just an absolute nightmare. That sucked. Anyways, it's in, it's done. I don't like how close this is to the signal arm. I'm thinking that we might end up shortening it up. We will see. After everything's in, I'll have a better look at that. If it was back here kind of thing, yeah, okay, that's fine. But when it's in its rest position, it's real close. I do not like that. So I'll be looking at that. And I'm also working on the column drop here, which is this piece, universal column drop, and making it fit on the interior using the original column drop holes, but I have to widen them out a little bit. So just doing that and gonna get that in next. With the upper column mount attached to the dash, it's time to work on the lower column mount. I have cut the piece of pipe that I had here earlier, and I'm going to weld that into the bottom section of this. I have also opened this out just a hair so that it fits over the column perfect. So we will weld that together next. With that welded up, next I'm going to make a little block off plate right up top here for where that factory 3 in the tree column shift went through. Little plate made, Now to burn it in. All right, there it is. It's filled, painted, ready to install. Came out pretty good. We're gonna step away from the steering now for a minute, as I was working on it and I had the column put in, sat in the seat, tried it. I don't like it. The column is too high. The steering wheel looks like it's going to interfere with your visual on the gauges. I don't like it at all. So I'm going to drop the column down. We're going to do a different column drop on that. So while we're waiting on a couple of parts, we're going to move over to the brakes now for a bit. And that starts by removing the factory e-brake handle from under the dash. I'll show you that. Job one, that is. Take this guy out of here. So we'll get him out. For this next part where we have to get in here to remove all of this inner bracing, we're going to have to remove the instrument cluster. So I'm working on undoing all of that. Well, we're up under the dash here and we are working on getting rid of this large steering brace piece right here. And it's got all kinds of spot welds. Now, this is what I have always found to be a good way to locate spot welds if you're looking for them and to drill them out. Is before you could not see at all where they were. Sometimes they're a little divoted and it's kind of easier to tell where they are. And in this case, not whatsoever. So when I have come across that, I will sand it. And as you can see, after sanding it, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 little marks, and that is where the spot welds are. And I got wiring coming into the frame, sorry about that. There we go. That's where they are. So that's where we need to get the spot weld cutter and knock those out. This is not fun, and if you're doing this, good luck. Anything's possible, but boy, this sucks. After you have your spot welds undone, down at the bottom there are 2 9/16 bolts to remove. One on each side of the brace. And with any luck, it might come out with a little bit of persuasion after we get these bolts out. It's out! Hooray! Now, while it needs to come out, it does not specify how many pieces it needs to come out in. Reason I state that is if you are doing this in a vehicle that's fully done and wired, all of your wires run, like in the entire harness runs in between both of these. So unless you're going to unwire everything for a piece of scrap metal, yeah, not worth it. My suggestion, cut it. I cut that one and I cut this one here so I could get everything through it and get it out. This has 13 spot welds. There's 2 against the firewall. There's 4 on each top side. And then there is 1 up here. Where else was there? I feel like there was 13, maybe not. Close to it. Anyways, on the bottom too, this had been brazed right when I thought I had all the spot welds off and it wouldn't still release from the dash. At some point, someone had brazed this to the dash. But rejoice, it's out. Thank goodness. That sucked. That was straight up not a good time. But we can move on now. So next we've taken the pedal assembly here. We've bolted it up to the factory holes in the dash for the column drop. And then it kind of hangs on a bolt in the middle up here. This is a factory, this is the lower factory bolt from that horrible apparatus we just removed. So we just threaded that one into the hole, and then this kind of sits on it, bolted up here, and then I cut out the marked where to and cut out the insulation so that the bracket could go right up against the firewall. Then I blasted a hole through it, put a bolt and a nut on it, and then went around and bored the other 4 holes. So after that, then I've gone outside here and marked off where the center hole now needs to be. So now we need a hole saw and we will cut a hole in that. That's where we're at right now. Hole is in the firewall. We got to go back inside now. I've removed the bracket, as this little guy here has to be wedged in on the inside. Right back here. Peel that insulation back a bit and you'll see this indent right there, and it needs to go in there before the bracket can go on. So I guess we kind of do a balancing act to get it to stay there. I don't know. Let's see what we can do. All right, with the help of some tape, I have taped in that little piece back there, and I have the brake bracket back in. Just finger tightened a couple of bolts to the dash here. And I have also taped the other portion of that spacer piece out here. And I'm going to see if I can put the booster through. Let's see what happens. All right, so the bracket is on, as you can see. Maybe you can't. I've got the e-brake handle again hooked in here. Obviously there's wiring that needs to be cleaned up. I will be doing that in a bit after the column's all wired up. So yeah, master and booster are bolted to the firewall, and the stock pedal actually bolts into this thing, so you could use this as like a hand control, I guess, because it's way up here. So, you know, I'll knock this post, so to speak, out of here so this can be mounted right down on here. But, yeah, probably work on some wiring, I guess, next for a bit for the steering, and go from there. All right, I just finished building an adapter harness, which will go from this type of plug into the factory ones, these ones here. So you can see I've got that end on it that will plug into the column, and then everything else plugs into the factory stuff. And that's for all your turn signals, stop lights go through there, you name it. Everything pretty much runs through your column. So that's all taken care of and wired up, so when I put the column in, I can just plug this into it and we'll be set. Next up, I'm going to take care of this brake pedal here. Gonna knock this off, gonna weld this piece on up here so then we can put it on to the new swing arm properly. I've been running brake lines. If you recall, this line here was the one that had that real bad kink, looked like it was possibly leaking. If you've been watching from the start, you will have seen that. Well, replaced that, hooked it up to the hose, to the brakes for the back brakes. Line runs along down the frame rail. We've got new bolts and clamps in as it runs down and goes forward. Takes a turn up top here, runs along this cross member, utilizing factory clamps. Then it spins and goes down the driver's side frame rail, again using factory clamps. From under the driver's side frame rail, it comes out here, moves up. I put a clamp in here for it. Then further up, nice little spin, and into the proportioning valve. So that is the rear brake line complete. Also a little rethink on the front brakes is sometimes, you know, you think about it and go, wait a minute, there's a better way to do that. So I moved it from where we had it. Reason being is I'm sure there would be enough room, but just with when I put a wheel and tire on and turned it, it was a little closer than I wanted. And I figure if different offset, larger size tire, it might get too close, might come in contact. We don't want anything to do like that. So rethink it. Let's do it better, do it safer. So I put it under this front control arm. I do not have it in yet. You can see the little tab though. So the brake hose will run just up here under the frame. It'll tuck that hose way out of the way from the tire. So no problems there. So that's good. And then I also just finished putting in that right there, which is, I don't know if you'll be able to see it here. Oh yeah, the brake tee. So we'll have our front brake line come down and go into that and then out to the front brake hoses. So that's where I'm at, and I'm going to build the line that comes out of the middle of this right now and run it up and into the master. That is where we are at right now. Building brake lines, and I'll tell you what, you want to look up in the dictionary what a perfect double flare is. Boom! That's it. Perfection. Love it. Second line is finished. Woo! Goes back, drops down, runs through another clamp, and then over, around, and into the block. Can't see the block right now. Anyways, as you can see outside, it's late. It's very late. It's about 12:77. So by that matter, I think it's time to call it a night, and we'll get back with more brakes tomorrow. We're almost there. Run a couple of metal lines off of the T, one up to the brake hose port here, another one up and across the cross member. Have to drill some brackets, some holes in there for it to go across to the other one. We're getting there. A lot accomplished today. And with any luck, some more steering parts will show up so we can get back to some steering stuff maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Maybe get the column in. But that's it for now. We will see you tomorrow. But that's where we're going to end it for today. We'll be back with you next time, finish up those brake lines and move on to some more steering. And that will be on the next episode of Hot Rod Road Trip. Appreciate you guys coming along, and thanks for viewing. We will see you next time.